Okay, Matanda.
Yes. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I'm sure we're all from different parts of the world. I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar. And introduce myself. I'll be co-leading with Uzetu. My name is Madanda Mabizela. I like my African name than my English name. My English name is very easy. It's happy, but I love my African name, which is Madanda. I'm here in South Africa. I'm a volunteer at Besimakatini, a foundation in Lamontville. I'm the one that run around when Zeto says this way, that way, that way, read, don't read. So I'm here and I am at Besimakatini Foundation because of the experience that I had with my mother, who was diagnosed with dementia for almost 4 years. And we have quite a lot of work that we are doing here in KZN, and of course, all parts of South Africa. There's a lot that we do, and as you know, that is required for people living with dementia. But today we are so privileged. I don't call Dr. Michelle a friend. I'm saying it's a professional friend of Besimakatini Foundation. Dr. Michelle Hamill has actually written a book, other than the talk that he's going to give us today. Dr. Michelle has written a book that we at BMF, I use that book. It's like my bread and butter. And the book, he wrote it together with Dr. Martina McCarthy. The book is How to Help Someone with Dementia. And Dr. Michelle is a clinical psychologist, and has been working in the field of older adults with mental health at NHS, and has been working with memory clinics, and of course with dementia care, or people that are living with dementia. And I now know that he worked with Zetu, which I'll bring Zetu in a second. But we just want to thank you, Dr. Michelle, for being a professional friend and always there to help us, to educate us, so that we can educate our community. Our community needs to know about this disease, and especially the heart that you have for those that are caring with people living with dementia. So we are very, very, very grateful, and we thank you for your time. I know I always say to other people, they will charge us. But for the last 3 years, you always do it passionately and lovingly, and doing it for us here at Besimakatini Foundation. So I don't know if Zetu, is there anything that I will ask you to add before I can hand over to Dr. Michelle?
Thank you, Matanda. I think you've said it very well. You've said everything. I can't add anything to what you've already said, but just to say, we started this journey a few years ago, and Michelle was one of those people with Martina who supported us, because we believe in our community being educated around dementia, and also to have people who give their time, for free, and they are passionate about this condition. And we want to actually thank them for being able to give us this opportunity of sharing with others who may not have that opportunity, of learning about this illness. And thank you so much for coming again here to support BMF. Thank you.
Thank you both. I'm really honored, I have to say. I think I've done 2 of these before, and I felt so welcomed and I felt so reassured in these sessions and meeting people who've joined them, just so reassured in the work that we're doing. And it's very reciprocal, it's very mutually beneficial. Sometimes this work is very difficult, and sometimes we wonder, why are we doing it? Because we come up against so many barriers. But being here with you today always reinforces my belief in the work. So it's really an honor. I love the professional friend introduction, Madanda. So thank you for that. As you've said, I'm Michelle. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I worked in the NHS for over 20 years. I've recently left the NHS. I'm now in private practice. And this session today is based on the book, as you said, Madanda, How to Help Someone with Dementia, that I wrote with my colleague and friend Martina. And just to say that I think, as many of you on this call, I don't just have professional experience of dementia, I also have had personal experience of dementia. So I come with lived experience. My dad had dementia. So it feels even more personal to me, but obviously, having been in a professional capacity in dementia care for 15 years, and then my dad developing dementia, just brought a whole other world, or a whole other shift of mindset to me. So today's session is based around one chapter in the book, and the book, there's no person with dementia without a carer. It's just they both go hand in hand. And today's session isn't really about people with dementia, other than their health and well-being requires those of you caring to look after your health and well-being. So we can't do one without the other. It's simply not the case the carers can say, I'm just pouring everything into caring for my relative, I don't matter. Because if you don't matter, you'll run out of steam, you'll develop your own health concerns, and then you won't be able to care. So we're very blunt in our services, or we have been, and certainly when I work with people directly, that it's essential that if you are caring, you look and think about your own health in order to sustain you, because this really is a marathon. And we want the person with dementia to have the best life possible, and that requires you to have a good life and have your health in check too. There's nothing in today's session there's no rocket science in this session whatsoever. I'm going to really strip it back and focus on the basics. So while some of you, and perhaps all of you, may think this is all very obvious, this is all very simple, it's certainly not easy to implement in your life, because if it was easy to implement, we'd all be doing it. So I'm going to do some maybe practical guided exercises as we go through as well, just to highlight the simplicity, but also these exercises that I'll be guiding you through, or suggesting to you. I always say to people, it's the same as brushing your teeth. Most of us, I think, brush our teeth twice a day. These exercises, if they're going to be useful, they require the same attention and effort as you would your teeth. Some people do them once and they say, that didn't help. And I said, well, of course it didn't. You don't just go to the gym once and expect yourself to be fit. These strategies, these tips they all require practice. They all require commitment. But with commitment and practice, they will offer something to help to cope when things feel very, very difficult. And to get you through otherwise. And as always, everyone's experience is entirely unique and individual. There's no one size fits all. But I hope that some of these ideas can offer you like a toolbox that you can choose bits to use, or bits that make sense most for you, and implement them in your lives. there's a lot of information on these slides, and that is because if people don't have the book, I wanted you to be able to almost have the full chapter in these slides. So for those of you who have the book, you'll have the content. For those of you who don't like lots of information on slides, that's absolutely fine. But for those of you who do want the information, that's why a lot is packed in here. But I'll kind of skim through quite a lot of it, but it's for those of you to refer back to if you want. So many of you, I hope, will know what person-centered care is. If you don't, or even if you do, I think it bears repeating. Person-centered care is very much what we're trying to do is take the view that people with dementia are unique. And we must be thinking of the uniqueness of every person's life story, their life history, their likes, their dislikes, their strengths, their kind of vulnerabilities. We really must be taking a whole person view of the person with dementia when providing care for them. And it's very important that we really strive to ensure that there's dignity at the center of the care that we provide. And in the book, we talk a lot about dementia is one part of someone's life. It's a disease people get obviously at a certain point in their life, different ages. But we want to see the whole person in order to provide dignified and individually based care. So in terms of thinking about your self-care or looking after yourself as a carer in whatever capacity that may be, the book also gives the message loud and clear. It's so important that all of us, this goes for all of us in our lives, that we focus on what is within our control. I think if we're open and honest with ourselves, so much of our focus in life can be on things like that's outside of our control. So other people's behavior, rather than thinking about, well, what can I do in this moment about my behavior or my reactions and responses? We can't control the deteriorating nature of dementia, but we can focus on making somebody's life and improve somebody's life and well-being. So by focusing on slowing the dementia down or stopping the dementia, we're wasting an awful lot of our time and energy when we could be looking at improving quality of life in the here and now. So this is just about looking at going through your day or going through your week, asking yourself, am I getting stressed because I'm focusing on aspects of my relative or my loved one's well-being that's outside of my control? And if so, can I start to look at what is within my control to change? So it's just a helpful guide, I think, for all of us to take stock of from time to time. What am I focusing my efforts on, and can I bring it back to something that really is within my control? So looking after yourself, as I said at the beginning, is essential, because if you're unwell, if you're stressed or you become unwell, then you'll no longer be able to care for your loved one. And as I said, it's very much dementia. We compare it to a marathon. It's for some people, they can live between 12 and 15 years with some types of dementia. So we really need to be thinking about pacing ourselves. And essential to this is getting enough rest and recovery. And like I said, these are very simple ideas, but I'm sure many of you who are in a caring role may recognize that sometimes you perhaps don't get enough, or you don't tend to the basics when it comes to your own health and well-being. So just some data and statistics for those of you who like data and statistics. This is it's a bit out of date now, but in 2019, the World Alzheimer's Report looked at attitudes to dementia. And this was a huge study, international study, and they found that 75% of carers said that they are often stressed in relation to their caring role and juggling other responsibilities, because of course financial matters, social matters, housing matters, these things don't just disappear when someone develops dementia. So normal day-to-day life stressors and responsibilities continue. over 50% of carers globally said that their health had suffered because of their caring. And this was even for people who, lots of people, as we know, get a tremendous amount of satisfaction and meaning and purpose from the role. So even for those people who were getting a lot of meaning and purpose and from the role, also said that their health had suffered. And we all know that stress in the short term is very important in terms of boosting productivity. But when stress becomes chronic, this is when it starts to affect our health. And when I say health, I'm always referring to mental and physical health. They go, our bodies and our minds can't be separated. So some of the risks that come along with caring, depression can be, there's very high risks of carers developing depression, cardiovascular disease, very poor sleep or insomnia, and lots of other health-related concerns. The other thing, obviously, there's lots of people who get younger onset dementia, but lots of people who develop dementia are in their later years and may well have a partner, husband, wife, who's older themselves, and they may have their own health-related conditions as well. And then you've got the double whammy of the risks of being a carer adding to that as well. We know that isolation is very common for both the person with dementia as well as the carer. And of course, there's a huge emotional toll, I suppose, in dementia, in that if you are caring for somebody who you've been close to for many, many years, who's been a companion or an intimate partner, an emotional support, when that person is no longer able to meet you or provide that companionship in the same way, that can bring up a lot of feelings as well and can be very, very painful. And a lot of carers will report that they don't have time to do their hobbies or their interests in the same way, if at all, anymore. So again, that can result in isolation, but also changing sense of identity. So identity can become fully bound with being a carer rather than being a person who is caring and also doing other things that engage and interest you. So this list is just, I'm not going to go through it now in detail, but it's a list of, it's about burnout. So if any of you on the call are caring and are feeling really kind of high levels of stress or not, please do just have a look at this as a guide. Do any of these resonate with you, or do you identify with any of these challenges or symptoms? Because it may suggest that actually your stress is getting to a point that's quite concerning. So beginning to now think about areas that you can start to change or do something about to support your well-being. So pain is part of life. We can't get rid of pain. And anyone who says that we can do away with pain, well, we can't. Pain is part of life. It's part of the reality of life. And certainly as you watch a loved one deteriorate in their own health and their abilities, it's very, very painful emotionally, as well as practically. So that's pain. And then resistance we describe as any attempt that we make to avoid feeling pain. So I might be feeling very stressed if I'm caring for a loved one with dementia. I might decide 2 glasses of wine isn't enough, so I might drink a bottle of wine, doing that to avoid feeling the pain. And of course, that may be a very helpful tool in the immediacy to dull or numb or cut off from my pain. But of course, in the long run, if I'm drinking excessively, it's going to affect my health, and it's also going to really significantly affect my ability to care. So resistance is about trying to avoid or get rid of pain when it comes up. And then suffering arises when we resist pain. So we can't get rid of pain, but what we're trying to do with these particular strategies and ideas in this session, we're trying to reduce suffering. So suffering is what we add to pain by resisting it. So we talk a lot with carers about acceptance. So how to open up to the inevitable pain that does show up when you're caring for a person with dementia, how you can accept it and find ways to cope that are not about resistance. So I hope that makes sense. So I think I've said that. So just here in terms of we give the example, it's like when for those of you who drive, when you're learning to drive, we're taught to, if it's been heavy rain and there's lots of water on the ground, we're taught, and you skid, we're taught to actually turn into the skid when we're driving. And this can feel very counterintuitive. When you're learning to drive, you kind of automatically want to swerve the other way. But actually, we need to turn into the skid, turn in order to regain control of the car. And it's the same with feelings. If we turn into them, if we make space for difficult feelings, we can then feel steadier in the face of them. We learn that we can cope with them. We learn that they'll pass through us versus trying to avoid them or cut away from them. So yeah. So then resilience, I'm just going to give a few definitions here and then go into some practical strategies. So resilience, is defined as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity or trauma or tragedies or other significant sources of stress. And it's not a personality trait. It's something that we can actually learn. So what we're, again, by focusing on the areas of our lives that we can control or modify, this can help us to become more resilient, be creative, find, can I talk to somebody? Can they help me? Can they give me some ideas for how to cope? How have I coped with difficulties in the past? Are there some things that I did in the past that might be able to help me cope with current challenges? And just very important, being resilient doesn't mean that we won't experience emotional pain. What it does is it helps us to cope when the pain shows up and get to the other side. And as I said at the beginning, like building any muscle, this takes time and it takes practice. And one of the best ways to do this is to share and to be in a community, to seek advice, to seek help. Just a problem shared is a problem halved, as we say. So again, for those of you who are currently going through stress and struggle in relation to caring, just think back to other challenges in your life and really try and get a sense of what helped you to get through. And remind yourself that you have got through difficult times in the past, because I don't think anyone in their middle years or later hasn't had difficult times that they've got through. Another important part of the journey in caring that can be incredibly helpful is to think about your values. And my values are likely to differ from some of your values. They're very personal things. But spending some time thinking about what really matters to me in this journey of caring. Really bringing into focus what matters. What kind of carer do you want to be? What do you want to stand for? And it doesn't mean that you will be this kind, compassionate carer necessarily all of the time, because none of us can, I don't think any of us, most of us can't be kind and compassionate all of the time. But what it means is if we have a bad day, we can recognize that we've had a bad day. We can learn from it, and we can then say, okay, well, tomorrow's another day. How can I start afresh tomorrow and care according to my values, being compassionate and being kind? And we're going to come back to compassion and kindness a little bit later. So being clear about what you want to stand for as a carer will really help you to feel a sense of purpose and to continue. I know I'm fighting hard for my relative, or I'm exploring what community activities there might be for them. I'm honoring my own self-care so I can show up for them in the best shape I can be. This helps to give you that sense of purpose and to continue in your journey. Again, when sadness and worry inevitably show up, which they will do. If we don't feel a sense of purpose, it can be all too easy to give up. and then feel defeated. And that's not going to help you, and it's certainly not going to help your loved one. So again, they're just a question to kind of ask yourself in terms of in your own space or in your own time, what kind of person do you want to be? What really matters to you in your heart of hearts when it comes to supporting your loved one? And these questions are a guide. I said everything is taken from the book, but just in your own space and time, to maybe sit down. And for those of you working perhaps with carers, more formal carers, or even other friends and family, these can be very useful questions to go through and ask yourself or think about with others offering care. So I won't go through those in detail now, but values very, very important when it comes to setting I suppose, the template or the guide or the compass. How am I going to continue in this journey? What are the broad values I want to aspire to? And when I don't aspire to them, I can get back on track by getting back in touch with what really matters. A critical part of looking after yourself when you're caring is knowing your limits. And really managing expectations. And this is really important so that we avoid burnout, and also that we can go the distance. There's a lot that can get in the way. I've mentioned guilt there, but all sorts of different feelings that can show up. So again, taking stock as you go on this journey, and all of these kind of initial slides, this can very much be a shifting sands where, you take stock today and say, what are my limits today? What expectations am I placing on myself today? And that may, of course, be different tomorrow. If I haven't slept last night, my limits are going to be very different in terms of what I can and can't do today than if I've had a very good night's sleep. So knowing your limits and managing expectations is very personal, but also very, very central to you looking after yourselves as you continue to care for a loved one. It's also important to think about options for support for your loved one in advance. Are there other people that you can bring into the circle of support? Lots of carers feel very alone in that role. Are there other communities or resources, online resources that you can connect with to seek information or to seek help? Are there, other parts of the community that you can turn to feel less alone? A good question to ask when you're facing a dilemma or having a tough time is thinking to yourself, what advice would you give to a friend in the situation that you're going through? And it's interesting, we always find it easier, I think, to give out information than to take on that information. But really important just to think, if somebody else, if someone was coming to me with this problem or this challenge, what might I say to them? And this again can apply to any situation, not just specifically in a caring role. And then again, thinking of expectations, setting realistic goals, asking yourself, what is the one thing that I can accomplish today that helps me with my well-being? Are there small things that you can do for 5, 10, 20 minutes each day? And can you build in regular time away from your caring responsibilities? And we talk, in the rest of the book, we spend a lot of time looking at the quality of life for your loved one and how to improve their quality of life in terms of their interests and activities. So what might you be able to do in terms of your own interests and activities as well? And so just as promoting healthy lifestyle is important for your relative, it's critical for you as well. And again, it's all the basic stuff: eat well, Try to sleep, practice good sleep hygiene, take regular exercise, be that on your own or with your relative. A 10 or 20-minute walk can be incredibly powerful, just to get that break out of the house or out of the space that you share with your relative, or go together if you need to as well, because the walk will benefit them too, unless they're very frail. So these next few slides are more about managing upsetting, painful, distressing feelings and thoughts. For many of you, you may connect with feelings of anger or despair or confusion, or guilt is very common, as I said. You know, why has this happened to us? It's not fair. Or why can't I cope? Everyone else seems to be able to manage. Or telling yourself that you're useless. And our response typically to these thoughts is to try and fix them. So we want to do anything typically to avoid pain. And this is where we risk creating suffering by resisting some of the pain that we feel. Because no matter how hard we try to fix our feelings, they'll come back. The next time, maybe things don't go according to plan, or when new challenges arise, or when our loved one is having a bad day. Sometimes, often, we just can't get rid of the bad feelings. So how do we cope? So just think again in your own time, or after this session, or when you go in the weeks ahead, just thinking about what different feelings have come up for you, or just thinking right here, right now, today, what feelings have shown up. And our brains love it when we put our feelings into words. So today I felt quite anxious. I don't know, free-floating anxiety. Maybe it was about coming to the session today or other things. And I know that simply saying to myself, there's anxiety. I'm noticing, I'm feeling anxious today. It can help to calm my brain, but it also helps me to say, okay, this is an experience that's showing up. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to try and get rid of it. I'm going to acknowledge that it's here. It's telling me something important. And we really can't control our thoughts or feelings. But what we do have more control over is what we do. So our actions and our behaviors and how we move. So we can always move our body. But what we're trying to focus on is not controlling our thoughts or feelings. So for me today, here's anxiety. Why am I feeling anxious? I'm not really sure. And I started to move. I danced in the kitchen, and I did some breathing exercises, which I'm going to come on to in a few minutes. None of it got rid of the anxiety, but it helped me to feel more grounded and more centered. And it helped me to feel less overwhelmed, because I know what this is. It's anxiety. So labeling your feelings is shown to calm the brain, the parts of the brain, the amygdala that sounds the alarm in times of danger. So getting into the habit of saying, there's anger, or I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling ashamed or embarrassed. Labeling those feelings offers a way to get a bit of distance around them, not to get rid of them, to acknowledge them, and then we get control over what we do. And movement or our behaviors is where we can where we have control and where we focus our efforts. So this is the first very practical exercise, and I was doing this quite a bit throughout the day. So I would invite you all now to, if you feel comfortable, to close your eyes just for a moment, please do so, especially if your cameras are off. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, just keeping your eyes open, but looking perhaps at a fixed spot in front of you. And I'm going to ask you now to really focus your attention to your breath, if that feels okay. So for anyone who's got breathing difficulties, maybe just play around with this. But for those of you who don't, bring your attention now to your breath and exhale out through your nose slowly for a count of 4. And then when you're ready to inhale, inhale again to the count of 4. And when you're ready to let go of the breath, Again, exhaling to the count of 4. And if you do this for a minute or two, longer if you can, but a minute or two, just breathing in slowly and deeply, evenly for the count of 4. And then letting go of the breath, again, breathing out through the nose. And you should notice that your stomach gently rises and falls as you breathe in and out. This will help to calm the nervous system. We often forget when we're very stressed or very anxious or very angry, and when we're emotionally dysregulated, we tend to kind of, our breathing becomes very tight or kind of shallow, or we hold our breath. So this is just about coming back to your breath, and we want to reduce the nervous system arousal. And as we're focusing on counting as well, we've shifted our attention perhaps from racing or intrusive thoughts that are extra kind of, that we're preoccupied with or ruminating on. If we're counting and focusing on our breath, we've detached from intrusive or ruminative, just kind of disturbing thoughts. So it has a few benefits in terms of focusing attention right to the present moment, away from racing thoughts about the future or ruminations about the past, neither of which we can control. So again, thinking of where can we place our control, focusing on the nose, the breath, and counting. And this helps to slow the heart rate and calm the nervous system. It tells the brain everything's okay, there's no danger here. So much of danger is created in our minds. Our brains cannot distinguish between real danger in the external world and the thoughts that are dangerous or our imagined fears and worries. So very simple technique, but it absolutely requires practice. And there is no point doing this when you are really dysregulated for the first time. It's important to be practicing this many times in the day, every hour, every 2 hours for 30 seconds or 1 minute, just counting in for 4 and letting the breath go for 4. The more you practice, then when you're starting to get dysregulated, when you start to notice, oof, I'm starting to get stressed now, or I'm really feeling like things are getting more and more intense, or I'm struggling more in whatever situation is arising, you can just steady yourself. So the situation doesn't change, but your approach and your response to the situation will be very different if you respond from a regulated, calmer place. So 1 to practice. And then just to come back, I think I mentioned earlier about emotional acceptance. So central to this journey of looking after and supporting a relative or a loved one with dementia is emotional acceptance. And what this means is that you can see your feelings and thoughts without judgment or without trying to get rid of them. So as I said a few minutes ago, saying there's anger. Okay, what do I need to do in this moment? Do I need to do some breathing? Do I need to go for a walk? Do I need to fight for my relative to get that place in the club that could do them so well in terms of their own quality of life? So without judging or trying to get rid of feelings. And acceptance is about accepting the reality of a situation, such as your relative or loved one having dementia. It doesn't mean that it's not painful. And acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It's not about resignation. It's just opening up to the reality of the situation and opening up fully to whatever feelings are showing up. Okay. Mindfulness some of you may have heard of. So I talk a lot about present moment awareness. So again, using the breath to come into this particular moment. We all, I think, or a lot of us anyway, spend an awful lot of our time thinking about the future. And of course, we do need to think about the future. We need to plan, we need to problem solve, we need to prepare. But sometimes if we go over and over and over, or just solely live in the future, or we all have to make sense of of the past and learn from our mistakes or learn from what we did well. But if we ruminate, if we go over and over, if we get stuck in the past, that can risk becoming depressed. If there's nothing new to learn from something in the past, staying there isn't going to help us. So learning to get present, being fully aware, fully engaged in what's happening right here, right now. Again, opening up to whatever difficulties are showing up, opening up to whatever sensations are coming up, is again opens the door to really engaging with what's here in front of us rather than imagined fears and concerns. And mindfulness is about feeling our pain, but not resisting it. So adding to our pain and creating suffering. And often we talk about, again, using our values. So are you willing to experience pain, thoughts, feelings, even physical pain in your journey caring, if that is what it takes to achieve a valued outcome? So if you are having lots of worry, the outcome is that your relative is looked after, that their health and well-being are going to be attended to. Can you feel the difficult thoughts and feelings? Can you feel the worry? Can you feel the sadness? Can you feel the embarrassment without drinking the bottle of wine or without denying it or without avoiding, in order to support them to achieve and live the life that's important to them? So it's pain with a purpose, because this journey will be painful. If we open up to it and work to provide a life both for ourselves and for our loved ones that's consistent with our values, again, we can be assured that we're on the right track to looking after ourselves and them. So this is another very helpful strategy when you're feeling overwhelmed. So when you're having one of those days where everything is going wrong, you might be feeling very overwhelmed by strong feelings and kind of worries or racing thoughts. This strategy can be really important. And I'm just going to go through it once, but again, the more you can practice this in your own time, the more automatic and immediate its effects will be. So it's called dropping anchor, and it's Russ Harris is the psychotherapist who created it. He describes it a bit like if there's a storm at sea and the boat can't get into the harbor, a boat will drop its anchor. So it keeps so the boat will kind of move around, but it'll be it won't drift off further into the ocean until the storm passes, and then it can get into harbor or go further on its journey. Dropping the anchor doesn't get rid of the storm, it just helps to keep the boat safe and anchored until the storm passes. And emotions are the same. Sometimes we just need to hunker down and wait until the emotions pass through, but can we do that in a way where we're more stable, we're more steady until that time? So the first, he calls it the ACE formula then. So A is, as we've talked about throughout this session, acknowledge your thoughts and feelings. So simply saying to yourself, again, labeling those feelings. There's anger. I'm feeling totally overwhelmed. I'm anxious. I'm angry. I'm upset. Label those thoughts and feelings. That's the first step, non-judgmentally. So notice them, be aware of them, and acknowledge them. And then the C is come into your body. And there's lots of ways to do this, and we really want to move our body here now. So again, regaining control over our behaviors, our actions, and our movement. So pushing your feet, if you just push your feet into the ground now, all of you, if that feels okay, you'll notice that your thighs activate. So just really pushing your feet hard into the ground and then letting go. And it might be that you stand up. So if you're getting distressed, you're noticing the distress, maybe stand up, maybe move around, moving your shoulders back, stretching your arms, shrugging your shoulders. And again, noticing then the breath and starting to do that focused breathing. So acknowledge what you're feeling and thinking. See, come into your body and move your body. Don't just notice your body, move your body. And then E is engage in what you're doing. So focusing your attention on the present moment, which is what we've just done in the mindfulness. What can I see right here, right now? And a very quick way of doing this, engaging in what you're doing, is look around. What can I see? We want to get a sensory connection to the here and now. What can I see? What can I hear? What can I feel? Can I smell anything? Do I have a taste in my mouth? And then coming back to the task at hand. So if you're supporting your relative to do something, but you probably, if you're feeling quite dysregulated or quite overwhelmed, you'll need to go through this cycle 3, 4, 5 times. But again, with practice, this will get quicker. So I'm feeling anxious. Oh God, just move my body. Focus on a few rounds of breath. What can I see around me? What can I hear? Okay, I'm present. I'm back. I'm grounded. And then can I come back and pay attention to whatever it is that's right in front of me? So again, sounds very simple, but not easy because it requires practice in order to be effective when you become distressed or dysregulated. How are we doing for time? I don't have my phone, Zetu. I can't see the clock on my. How are we doing for time?
I think we're doing fine. We could be here as long as you want us to be.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Zetu. So the really important caveat with this practice is not to skip the A. If you don't acknowledge what you're thinking and feeling, this strategy becomes a distraction technique. And what we're trying to do in supporting your well-being is to accept and allow and make space for the difficult thoughts and feelings without struggling with them. So I hope if anyone maybe wants me to explain that further, after I can do that. So this is not a distraction. Distraction can be great, but with distraction, the difficult thoughts and feelings will come back if we don't learn to manage them or kind of give up the struggle with them. So very, very important if you're going to use this technique, and I advise you to use it, it is very effective. The A, acknowledge my thoughts and feelings, is the critical first step. Then coming into your body, moving the body, and then engaging in your immediate sensory awareness and what you're doing. So self-compassion then, I'm going to try and whiz through these last few. It's a huge amount to cover. I know this probably feels an awful lot, but I do hope people can return to the slides after and spend a bit more time. What I'm going through in these slides, for somebody who's in an individual therapy, this work could take at minimum 12 weeks of therapy, if not longer. So these ideas are not just do it once and expect for it to make a difference. It really is as important as keeping hydrated, eating well, sleeping, ensuring you're seeing friends. All of these ideas and techniques require practice. We wouldn't expect to learn a foreign language overnight, and similarly with these. And these are things that you would be important to do for the rest of your lives as well. So self-compassion is really critical to becoming, to looking after yourself. And what it means is acknowledging that suffering or acknowledging that struggle, acknowledging that right here, right now, I'm really having a tough time. And it's not just the same, it's not the same as self-care, it's being with suffering. So compassion is to suffer, and self-compassion is to be with yourself when you're suffering, when you're struggling, when you're distressed. And to try and support yourself through that. There is a huge evidence base for the benefits and the importance of self-compassion now. There's thousands of research papers how self-compassion benefits Olympic athletes, top performers, executives, everyone. Lots of people believe that we need to be hard on ourselves. So our inner critic, I need to beat myself up about a mistake I made in order to then do better the next time. But what the research shows is that that doesn't help, actually. That just leads often to a sense of defeat, resignation, resentment. So what we know with self-compassion, and again, this is a skill to learn. This isn't just something that people are born with often. It needs to be learned, that the more self-compassionate we can be and learn to be, the better able we are to cope in the face of life's inevitable pain. Okay. So I'm not going to go through, and again, so I'm going to go through another, I think this will be the final guided practice in a minute, but really important to know self-compassion. Again, I'm going to share some audio clips with you. There's lots of fantastic resources out there where you can be guided through the techniques or the principles of learning to apply self-compassion. But once you get these skills, like with the dropping anchor a moment ago, and that 4x4 breathing, once you are better or more familiar with them, you can then do them on the job. None of these 3 techniques or skills require you to be in a spa or be away from your loved one. They're all designed to be you can apply them on the job. So in that moment when you're caring and you just need to drop your anchor, or in the moment that you're caring and you're really struggling because you haven't slept, or your relative is doing something that's really triggering for you, acknowledging this is really difficult. I'm really, really having a hard time right now. Very, very powerful in terms of not changing the situation, but changing your resourcing of yourself, your compassion towards yourself, that this is really difficult. And you can show up for yourself and be kind to yourself in that distress. And this is so important to help you to sustain you as you care for your loved one, that you can continue to care for yourself and nurture yourself too. So I've put 2 links in the slides. There's Chris Germer, who's a clinical psychologist, and Kristen Neff, I think also a clinical psychologist. They're both from the States. They both have fantastic websites with loads and loads of audio clips. So if those of you, if you're on your laptops, you can click on these and you'll be talked through, or go on their websites and you'll see lots of different guided practices from 5 minutes up longer. And they have, I think, Kristen Neff, the second link there in blue, she has a specific self-compassion practice for carers. So I urge you to look into that at another time. So self-compassion, there's 3 steps to it. And the first step is to say, so if you could all, if I could invite you all now to bring to mind something that's happened today, not too activating, something that's happened today or this week that's caused you some stress, that's been tricky, that's been difficult. So just bringing to mind. And for me today, it was, gosh, why am I feeling so anxious? I don't know, I just am. And then I applied throughout the day these steps, and it did. It changed how I was able to manage the anxiety. So when you've got your situation now that's kind of been stressful for you or brought up some tricky feelings and thoughts for you, just noticing where in your body you might be feeling some tension, maybe in your jaw, maybe your heart, your stomach. So just notice where in the body. So all of these 3 practices, we're focusing on the breath through the nose, we're getting into our body. Dropping anchor, we're getting into our body, we're moving our body. And again, self-compassion. Notice any discomfort that comes up in your body as you bring to mind this particular situation today or this week that's been stressful. And then in your mind, say to yourself, oh, whatever words feel right for you. Gosh, this really hurts, or oh, this is really tough. This is hard. I don't like this. So whatever words feel comfortable or natural to you, that acknowledge that this is a moment of suffering as you consider this situation that's been difficult for you. And then the second step is acknowledging that suffering and pain, they're a part of life. And say, I'm not alone. We all struggle at times. And then it might be that you just put your hand over your heart and just say, you know, this is really difficult, but I'm not alone. Everyone struggles, everyone gets it wrong, or everyone makes mistakes from time to time. And then again, in words that fit for you, what might you need to hear right now that expresses kindness to yourself? So for me today, it's like, I'll be okay. I can get through this. I'm okay. I'm okay. I know what this is. It's okay. I'll be okay. So they're the 3 steps of self-compassion. Again, very, very simple, but they require practice and rehearsal. And like I said, I would really urge you to click on either or both of these fantastic experts in self-compassion in the field and just go through some of their different guided audios, because the more familiar you become with the steps, the quicker you can apply them on the job when you're looking after your loved one. So as I've said time and time again, all of these practices take time. It's really important not to give up. And just again, notice if you do have a strong inner critic, it may say, this is stupid, don't bother, you aren't worth it. Again, notice that, and then coming back either to the breath, extend some self-compassion to yourself, or dropping your anchor if you need something like that. The more you practice, the more natural these ideas will become, and the better able you will be able to implement them when challenged. Just as I finish, really important that you prioritize relationships outside of the caring role. Isolation, as we know, and loneliness are incredibly dangerous. So being able to, even if you can't share the load with regards caring, that you do engage some time, be it on the phone or meeting someone for a cup of tea. It's important to find trustworthy and supportive other people. And there's a lot of online dementia forums now. Again, so if you don't have anyone in your immediate local surroundings that you can trust or rely on or share what you're going through, and it doesn't matter that somebody might not understand or have knowledge of dementia. It's that you can just offload and say, I'm really having a tough day, and know that there's other people around you. If you can also connect, though, of course, with other carers, that's wonderful and invaluable too. And like I said, there's lots of online forums that you can type to people, or you can kind of develop a community around in that way. It's really important to ask for help and support. So I know I've covered, it feels like I've covered an awful lot there, and maybe not as succinctly or as eloquently as I would have liked. There's an awful lot in that session today. Please do reread the slides at your own pace, because it is a lot to take in. And again, coming back to focusing your energies where you do have some control, and don't give up. And when you notice that things are difficult, if you're starting to practice self-compassion, again, extending yourselves even more compassion in the face of whatever it might be that's coming up. You owe it to yourselves, and you owe it to whoever you are supporting, who has dementia. You owe it to yourselves to pay attention, nurture yourselves to sustain you in this journey. There we go. Okay, I'll stop sharing now.
Wow. What can I say? Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you so much. It's so powerful. I'm feeling something as I'm listening to you, and I was just taking part in some of the exercises that we're recommending. But what I really would like, I don't want to talk more about myself here. I really would like to open it up to people who may want to say something about, the presentation, or maybe they may have questions, things that they didn't understand. But I also want to tell people that this has been recorded, and we have a couple of slides, but I'm going to make sure my son helps me to make sure that it can be uploaded. I'm not a technical person, and YouTube, or also some links. So as long as people can leave some of their email addresses, but we'll make sure that people can have access to this webinar, which is recorded, so people can watch it as often as they want to. Thank you so much. So can I just open it up to the group if people want to ask questions or make comments, please? And people, remember to unmute yourselves when you want to speak. I can't see a hand up, or people can just go on and just talk. Yes. Okay, Tandy, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Zetu, and thanks, Dr. Michelle. That was really quite enlightening. So what I've struggled with my mother is, how do I get over the unresolved issues that we've had, that we haven't addressed, that have been there? Because now I feel like, okay, well, I missed my opportunity to address that or to address that. So stuff that was already there anyway, and it feels like I must just forget everything, because this thing, and I want to say this thing, this illness is basically dominated, and it's like, so now I'm stuck with my own feelings of unresolved stuff that I've been carrying with my mother. I don't know if I'm making sense.
You absolutely are. Thandi, is it?
Yep.
Yes,
Yes.
it is.
It's such a fantastic point. And Zethu and I think it's safe to say we come across this so often in our work. There are, families are complicated, aren't they? And there's lots of experiences that people will have had that often, if not most of the time, can feel unresolved. And when there are, and if I get this wrong, Tandy, if I've misunderstood, please do jump back in. But are you saying that perhaps things have happened in your relationship or in the family that you haven't been able to maybe address directly with your mum, and now you're caring, and now she has dementia, so she couldn't really understand or remember anyway? Is that
Yes,
Yes.
basically.
So a very, very shared experience across lots of carers. So firstly, huge congratulations and thanks that you are stepping up to provide care for your mum, even though there are perhaps relational things there that have been tricky or remain unresolved. So that's a huge thing. Lots of family members will not do that because if something has happened or if there've been challenges in the family. So in terms of how you cope, I think it goes back to the acceptance that these difficult things or these challenges or these unresolved issues have happened. Your mum, because of the dementia, can't remember or isn't really in a place now where she can address them. So can you accept the reality of the pain that maybe is showing up for you? some of the yeah, so can you accept the pain of the reality of not being able to address it with mom, and use some of these strategies to, and also to kind of name to yourself, or are there other people in the family that you might be able to talk to about some of these issues?
Well, I think my siblings, we're all on the same
Yeah.
with my siblings. So sometimes we do talk.
Yeah.
But it's getting past that, because I think probably we're still at an anger stage. There's a level of anger that goes with it. It feels unfair, right? That you just need to just drop everything and jump into this because there's a responsibility that's come on board. And almost like she's getting away with it,
Okay.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things there. So she's getting away with it. So you're right, though, the acceptance part then for me, kind of in this kind of brief conversation we have time for, your ability with your siblings to accept perhaps mum wasn't the mum we all would have wished or hoped for. She made her own mistakes, whatever it might be, Tandy. I don't want to kind of make assumptions. We feel, so this is the acceptance part, we feel angry. So we want to name and give place to that anger. And there's obviously a vast difference, isn't there, between feeling angry and then acting in anger. So, validating your own feelings of fear or anger, validating and normalizing and naming that you feel anger or sadness or hurt. Validate and name, she's getting away with it. So naming these things, and then we go to the values. We have, and self-compassion is really critical as well, Tandy, to be able to be compassionate for yourself and the experiences that you had when mum was maybe caring for you, or didn't maybe show up and care for you in the way you would have hoped or needed or wanted. So acceptance of those feelings, making space for them, naming them, and being self-compassionate towards yourself. And then it's coming to values. Okay, so we have these unresolved feelings, we've anger showing up, we have this sense that she's getting away with it, and we need to honor that. And can I also care for her that's in accordance with my values? What kind of carer do I want to be? So she may not have shown up for me when I needed her. Can I show up for her? What matters to me in this moment of caring? And I would have to say, Sandy, for some carers that we work with, it isn't actually possible for them to maybe care for a parent or a relative who was, who didn't show up for them in the way they needed. Does that make sense? So sometimes we do have to say, if the relationship, if the issues between you were such that you can't provide safe care for your relative who wasn't caring to you and now you're needing to care for them, if it's not safe to do that because of trauma, then there needs to be quite a frank and explicit conversation or decisions made around that. But if you and your siblings can kind of say, we can validate and honor our own feelings of hurt and pain and distress, and use some of the strategies we've talked through today, and then say, and can I behave? So I feel furious or angry, I feel let down, I have a thought she's getting away with it, or I believe she's getting away with it. So that's my feelings and my thoughts. Now, how do I want to behave in relation to caring for her? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Very tricky, Sandy, though, and like I said, a huge, it's tremendous being able to, or kind of stepping into that. I know lots of people will say, well, I have to care for mum because there is no one else. But when there's been tricky relationships and unresolved issues, even more important, I hope that you can make use of some of the strategies in the slides, because it really is important that self-compassion and thinking and looking after your own feelings is critical. Zetu, do you have anything that I've missed there? Because this is such a part of our work, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yes, it is. I think for me, for Tandy to be able to actually open up and share
Mhm.
everybody, I think for me, that's a beginning, because it is about naming it, it is about recognizing that, and it is about trying to deal with it. And it is a process. Obviously, you've started and you're going to continue. So I think for me, just acknowledging the fact that you were able to bring it up here, right, in this kind of space, right? So for me, that's something, that's just the beginning of it. Yeah, so it's just, how do you heal then? Just continuing to use the strategies that Michelle is talking about, and also as a family to continue to have this conversation around that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Thank you very much for sharing. Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else want to be brave like Tandy, or just make a comment?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
I want to, yeah.
Is that Angela? Hello? So is there somebody who said something? Okay, I missed someone. Okay. Is there anybody else who may want to make a comment or say something?
I'm safe. I thank you. I thank the doctor for giving me such advice, because I don't know how to. I didn't know how to cope with it. And my children said, "Mom, they didn't look. They didn't care about you. They didn't when you was growing up. They didn't do anything for you." So I said, "No, I have to help her, because she's there for me to help her. So I cannot say I would not help her. I want to help her in the best way I can. Sometimes I cry. Sometimes I don't know what to do. So I said, Father, you will help me. I just try and concentrate on what to do, because sometimes I cannot think, because I just forget of things. So I try my best to do what I can for in the meantime.
And it's so tricky. And again, this is why I would urge you all to go back to that bit about values, because this is the bit that's within our control. Angela, you showing up like Thandi, what is within my control, and who do I want to be as a carer? And if I am going to care, with all of these difficult thoughts and feelings that might be showing up, especially if the relationship was complicated, again, I owe it to myself to be attending to my basic care. Tricky stuff. And it's again, I never cease to be amazed by people's openness and willingness to step into this role, rightly so. But it's not easy at all.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you. I
Angela.
appreciate that. Yeah, thank you, Seto. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Zetu, can I
Yes, please.
share?
Yes, Asir. Yes.
Thank you, Doctor, for creating this safe space. I just wanted to share that from the 20th of December until last Tuesday, I had my aunt with me, so I've been caring for her at my place. So just every day, it was just the both of us, and I experienced a challenge where I got the flu on, like just before Christmas. But I would wear a mask, and like I didn't have any further help. And just one night, and she started coughing. So I thought maybe she got the flu from me, but she coughed, and she can't expectorate.
Okay.
And thank God I had oils, respiratory oils, and I rubbed behind her ears, her chest, comforted her, rubbed, just beneath her feet, and cradled her until she could fall back to sleep. But I wish I could, I knew like this process, which is to drop and acknowledge. And yeah, but she just woke up in the middle of the night. It was just before midnight. And so what I do, I do yoga every day. I do breath work. I do breath work. And then the carer didn't turn up when she was supposed to be back at work on the 6th. So I had her for an extra week. And I think with the yoga and breath work, it sort of like sustained me. And so I usually have her with me over weekends, but this weekend I just said no, because I realized that there was that aspect where I wasn't taking care of me, like, um, looking after my toenails, for example, or undoing my braids. And I just needed, the time, just to recollect. And tomorrow like I was acting in my senior manager's position, all the days, but for some reason she will sleep until maybe 10, 11. And when she's up, then I will take her to brush her teeth. And then I'll give her breakfast, take her to the shower. And I, continue working, give her lunch. But she's in this phase where she's not like that, like restless, and she wants to be everywhere.
Yeah.
And then in the afternoons, I take her for a walk around the garden, and so that really helped. And I'm just saying, like, thank you so much for creating this safe space for all of us.
Thank you for sharing. When you use you saying, I cradled her back to sleep, to meet someone in their vulnerability, as you have done there, to offer that reassuring physical presence, that is so powerful when she woke. And it must have been frightening for her and you. So to meet her in her vulnerability in such a tender way, that is so powerful. And also to hear you say and I hope this encourages other people on the call, because you recognized your limit. And you said, I just can't do it this weekend, because you recognize that to sustain you in the journey, having, had very disturbed sleep, or having cared for her longer than you maybe expected with her care, or not being able to come, that you recognize, I need this time to recuperate my energy, recoup my energy. That is so important, that you've honored yourself, what you need in order to continue in the caring long term, and that you use the yoga, moving, and the breath work. It doesn't change the circumstances, but it helps you to attend to your body and your mind. So very powerful on so many levels. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Asia. Lisa, I think Lisa has got her hand up. And then I'll also read one comment. Lisa, before you say something, can I just read one comment from Sophie? And she collected her mom because she and dad had done all what they could for them and the grandchildren in London. So she collected her mom from the Caribbean and brought her back to London because she's developing dementia. And now they are sort of, they're helping her, so they're supporting her, so which is good. Thank you so much, Sophie, for the comment. Yes.
Amazing.
Yes, Lisa, sorry, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And it's the evening in Richards Bay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this platform. And thank you, Dr. Michelle, for your generosity of your time and knowledge shared with all of us. It seems like everyone here, the loved one is the parent, and in my case is my husband. It has been 5 years. It has been the most loneliest journey ever. And the one thing I learned during these 5 years is be kind to myself, keep forgiving myself, because very often you lost it.
Yeah.
You've said things you don't mean to.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to be harsh so you can get the message, because you have to repeat it yourself 5, 7 times. And you're about to have to go to work. And that's the one thing I learned. I said to myself, it's okay, Lisa. You lost it. You say things. You know what? I don't think he remember you what you said. And then I move on.
And Lisa, how that embodies so much of what we've talked about today. So the loneliness, but how did you come to that in terms of, because you're absolutely right, we will all have those
Yes.
days where we're like, oh my goodness, how did you come to that kind of way of
How
coping?
do I cope?
Well,
How do I cope?
yeah,
Yes.
and what do you
Yeah.
do to look after
What
yourself?
do I do? Okay. I'm very much involved in the game of chess development in our district.
Yeah.
It was started from zero actually, and now I'm leading all 5 municipalities. We developed the game for 100, even 1,000, young age, youth, and all ages. So
Wow.
that is rewarding me.
Okay. And
I
does that
cannot,
help, Lisa, as
yeah,
well with the
very much.
loneliness because you're engaging with other people? Fantastic. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I don't like school holiday because I'm also a teacher. Because now I have to be at home. I'm not embarrassed about it
Yeah.
because when you're at home, you just focus on one thing only, my husband, his well-being, and then his everything. It's not like I don't want to, but I love myself too. I want to have a purpose. I want to have a control. With my husband, I didn't feel I have a control. I can't help him. I can't make him remember things. I can't help him he don't remember. I can't help him he doesn't know how to clean himself. I can't teach him anymore. Where school, other people, I can teach them. They learn from me.
So you're
Even then,
focusing on what is within your
yes,
control and recognizing the
exactly.
limits.
What
He's
I can,
do that.
yes,
Can I
yes,
put my teaching on, in
exactly.
you can still,
So you mentioned it earlier, focus on what I can.
yeah,
and bring that as my reward,
yeah.
because I need to have that purpose. Because to me now my duty is to make his life as comfortable as possible. That's all I can do. There is no more than that.
And it's so, as you said, and I can see the emotions because, when it's a loved one, a partner, what you share, the relation, it's a huge, huge adjustment. And so that delicate balance of looking at making sure he's okay, whilst you also nourish and nurture yourself, but you've embodied self-compassion. Lisa, you lost it. It was a bad moment. You're right. He won't remember if he's gone past a certain point. And how do I show kindness to myself when I've got it wrong? And then I adhere to my values tomorrow by, getting back on or trying to get back to.
So my message, Essie, to everyone also, just maybe I don't know, I can't see if on their shoes as your parent, but on my side as a wife, my spouse who is like that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm only 52. Do I need a partner? Do I need the intimate? Yes, I do, of course. I have a feeling. But then you said, oh, this is too complicated. Who wants to dare this? And I'm not shy to say it. I even explained to my children why. I said, if I ever will meet someone, not to get married or something, because I know this is not going anywhere. I'm not gonna leave him. I will go for it. Why? Because I still need that living.
Lisa, absolutely. That connection.
To continue carrying him.
Yeah.
I want to carry him until the end.
Yeah.
And my children, they're 26 and 29, and they have very understanding. And I said, just to have a companion, to go somewhere, to have tea together, to have a chat together. That's all I want. And allow yourself, because I'm sorry, could be another 10, 20 years.
Absolutely.
What are you going to do?
Oh, it is just, again, the rich. This is why I said at the beginning, I get so much from doing these sessions.
Sorry, excuse me, there's somebody, I don't know who's talking. Excuse me, I'm gonna try and mute someone here. I have no idea who it is. Can somebody mute themselves, please? Yeah, okay, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, Lisa, please go ahead.
No problem.
Mm.
Yeah, just yeah, there's so much I learn, and just like you said, focus on what you can, and just learn to forgive yourself. And then when you have enough, I'm sorry, sometimes I have enough, what I do is just close my door and breathe in and breathe out just for a few moments.
So this is the thing. It's sometimes it is, that's sometimes the only thing we can do, and we forget,
Yes.
but it is within our control if we practice. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not a drinker or smoker, so
Glad you're not. That's where the problems start.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Lisa, you are doing so much, so well.
thank you,
Um,
thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, I think I'm doing okay. I'm
you
doing
do
okay.
well done, well done. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Well done. Yes,
think,
thank you.
I
Is there anybody, I mean, I could hear people in the background. Is it because they want to say something, or maybe they forgot to mute themselves? Sorry.
And Chris, I just want something with whom to do nothing, where there is some warmth.
In the relationship of just being
Chris, are
mentally
you?
together. Okay.
Is Chris there? Do you want
Chris,
to?
are you there? Chris? I thought I'd seen him. Is Chris there?
Yeah, yeah,
Hi,
yeah.
hello, Chris.
You speak of the loneliness.
Mhm.
So when there's no content to anything that is being said, every noun is a thing. So there's no content, and so you have no relationship really, and all you want is you just want somebody where there's some kind of mutual feeling in the background. It's not even that you want to sit there and sort of talk and discuss things all day. You just want to be with someone where there is mutual feeling.
And that is that is that gone in your life, Chris? Do you feel that the kind of emotion?
There's no content to anything that's said, and so eventually you kind of resort to nodding and grunting approval and that sort of thing. But there's nothing. There's no cognition.
Yes. And things like, simple touch, is there any, just a holding of a hand, or have things kind of progressed?
No, there is still that which in fact I've found has returned to a degree over the last 2 weeks. Before that it was just this absolute emptiness and just the duty of sort of cleaning and showering and dressing and getting to bed, that kind of routine and feeding. So I'm going. It's going through a bit of a better stage right now, but there's no kind of processing of anything. You can't. There's no synergy. You've got no way of sharing ideas, or just when you think of something, you just want to just turn to somebody and comment. If you see something on TV and it's interesting, you want to make a comment. And there's absolutely no way of understanding. There's no logic or memory at all.
And that's so incredibly painful when things, if the relationship, you have been sharing ideas and thoughts, or the newspaper or whatever it might be, interests, when that's no longer possible, it's incredibly painful, Chris, as you've said. And I hope today's session, we owe it to ourselves to name it. This is awful. I don't like this. This hurts. This really hurts that it's gone past that point. And also maybe see what other opportunities there might be. It won't be easy, but are there other people that you can maybe share some of those?
This is what I was going to say, is that it's almost impossible to find anybody with whom you can share this thing without sounding as if you are looking for sympathy and that sort of thing, where you're not. All you're looking for is another alternative where you have some kind of sharing.
Chris, do you not have a support group or people in the area where you can meet people in similar situation? I don't know which part
Yeah.
of South Africa you're at. I don't know.
No, we do have a support group, but you're at the support group, you're talking about the day-to-day trials and tribulations.
Okay.
It's not really a support group where people sort of get together socially and interact.
Yeah.
It's just a functional support group rather than a social group.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you able to have time apart from your relative, or is
Well, what I do is I get 8 hours off every day because I go to work still.
okay?
So then the left in the trust of somebody, and you had to move into a village where there is such a facility.
Yeah.
So that is my sanity time. Yes, when I go to work. Yeah.
No, is it your
When you go to work, so no time for you to kind of, it feels like little time to socialize, or it's something important to consider. Is there scope to create some opportunities or time if you've identified this being an unmet need for you, Chris? These opportunities, it's great that you've got that support group, but as you said, that serves a different function. That actually this need for interacting on a social or interest-based level, and might there be ways for you to consider how to do that, because that is also going to help sustain you. No easy answers, but just you've identified it as an unmet need, which is the first step. And then how you might be able to maybe in the support group, that might be something to ask people. How do people, or what else do people do for themselves if they're no longer able to have these conversations with their loved one around interests or social engagement? And what do people do? So not that you would do those social things with that group necessarily, but might the group have suggestions as to
That's a good suggestion. Maybe I'll raise that to the next support group meeting.
It's
Yeah, thank
very
you.
powerful, Chris. I think lots of people will be maybe wondering the same thing, or they may already have some ideas for how to manage.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Lisa, you're
Thank you.
back again. I don't know whether the hand was. Yeah, please go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, Chris and I, we belong to the same group, and I don't really interact very much because I find it quite depressing sometimes to read the whole thing. It's because of the, you're already dealing with it, and you have to read everyone. It's not because I have no sympathy for them. It's just like, oh, this is too much. I can just imagine how difficult for everyone, and some of them worse condition than mine. So I understand very well what Chris is saying about the group. It does sometimes help in terms of the system, ideas, how to handle this and that. And then it's not easy to find someone who you can deal with, like looking for a companion, like I was referring earlier. Because you're right, Chris, they can think you're looking for sympathy, but actually I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm capable, I'm a woman. I think I find myself independent, strong. I can do that, but I want my life more than this.
Yeah.
And people do take it wrong. Let me say men do take it wrong, or at least are looking for sympathy. So what I did, I dropped the idea. And I found another thing amuse me where I can control. It does adding on my, more involvement, but is rewarding. I feel like I'm achieved something. So I think I have to go back to my other group. You are mentioning. They all only do that all day long, looking after their loved one. We have to have more than just that. It not trying to make it sound you don't care about them, but we have to live on.
And Lisa, it's a very important point. We always reframe this. People will say it's selfish to think about myself, and we say it's selfish not to think about yourself. You know, it's careless not to think about yourself because of the risks to yourself if you don't. The
Yes.
caring is going to be, you know, we're not going to deny that it can be the bulk of somebody's life, but we want to caution people, and you're reinforcing that point,
Yes.
that if you don't look after these other parts of yourself, you'll quickly become burnt out and resigned and resentful, and then you won't be able to. So you've so helpfully, and I hope, Chris, again, there's some kind of that, you know, to encourage you to seek ways to meet these social needs, because it's, you know, it's too risky not to. It really is.
It really is, yes. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I'm aware of the time,
Yes.
and what can I say? Thank you so much. I'm hoping, Michelle, you can come back again, and people could have the opportunity of reading the book if they can get it from Amazon, I believe, or the webinar which has been recorded. I'll make sure, I'm gonna beg my son to make sure that by the next few days people can have access to it, but also I'll be able to send the slides, which Michelle has shared with me already. But thank you so much for the evening. I think it was very, very interesting. And I'm hoping that, you know, we've made that difference by creating this space. And I'm hoping in the future, we can also create more spaces like this. If people can come up with ideas in terms of topics that they really want us to address. So it's just about me asking other people to come in and sort of learn, because learning together and supporting each other is very, very important. So thank you so much again. And hopefully we'll see each other soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Zetu.
Thank you, Zetu. Thank you.
Lisa, it's how to help someone with dementia, but we'll it's at the bottom of the slide,
Yes, yeah.
the name of the
Okay.
book.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah,
Everybody's there.
everybody had the poster. Yes, yeah. So,
But
yeah.
Lisa,
Thank you.
I think you're embodying all of the content of the book already. So
Well done.
Yes.
Yes.
keep it up, keep it up. Thank you
Keep it
all.
up, yes. Yeah.
I don't feel anxious anymore. Maybe my anxiety today was coming to speak to you. It's been a pleasure. If I haven't explained something properly because of my anxiety, apologies. You have Zetu's email address, and I hope to come back again. There is, you know, the work you're doing, the jobs you're doing, it's inspiring, but thank you for your warmth. I appreciate it, and we will catch up again in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Michelle.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.